Three Russian MiG-31s slice through cold Baltic air. Below them, the dark shape of a tanker moves steadily through the gray waves, a ship suspected of belonging to Russia's Shadow Fleet, the network of vessels used to bypass Western sanctions. What looked, at first, like routine military theater, a symbolic show of strength, was about to test NATO's defenses in real time. Because NATO was already there, watching. For decades, the Baltic Sea has been one of the tensest frontiers in Europe, a narrow body of water bordered by NATO members like Estonia, Finland, and Poland, and by Russia's heavily fortified Kaliningrad region. Each day, radar screens glow with dots representing aircraft, warships, and civilian traffic. Most of those dots never meet, but on this winter morning, the dots aligned in a way that caught NATO's attention. According to military officials in the region, 3 Russian MiG-31 interceptors appeared near Estonian airspace, flying high, fast, and deliberately close. At the same time, open-source maritime trackers flagged a tanker sailing through the Baltic Sea with its transponder partially masked, suspected of carrying sanctioned oil. To some, it was coincidence. To others, a coordinated maneuver, a signal from Moscow that even under sanctions, Russia can protect its assets. In response, NATO's air policing mission, operating from bases in Italy, Germany, and the Baltics, reacted immediately. Within minutes, a pair of Italian F-35A Lightning II jets took off from Amari Air Base in Estonia. They didn't cross paths with the MiGs in open combat, but they did something far more telling. They shadowed them, silently tracking, identifying, and transmitting data across NATO's shared defense network. By the time the MiGs realized they were being followed, they were already surrounded, not by planes, but by information. The encounter over the Baltic wasn't just about aircraft, it was about 2 different visions of military power. On one side, the Russian MiG-31 Foxhound, a relic of the Cold War but still one of the fastest fighter interceptors ever built. Built for speed, altitude, and brute pursuit power. It can climb to the edge of space and reach speeds exceeding Mach 2.8. On the other, NATO's F-35 Lightning II, slower but far more connected. A flying network node capable of detecting, sharing, and analyzing data across multiple domains: air, land, and sea. Its power doesn't come from its engines alone. It comes from the web of sensors and allies around it. When the Italian F-35s approached, they didn't need to paint the MiGs with radar. Their onboard systems quietly fused satellite feeds, ground radar, and signals intelligence from nearby NATO listening posts. Almost instantly, they knew the MiG's speed, altitude, and trajectory. And maybe even what they were trying to do. Meanwhile, NATO maritime intelligence was tracking the tanker moving below. To civilian ships, it looked like a harmless cargo vessel, but its movements matched patterns of Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet, a group of tankers registered under shell companies, often switching off transponders or using false coordinates to disguise sanctioned oil transfers. The question was simple but urgent. Were the MiG-31s protecting that ship? The F-35s didn't engage. They didn't need to. Instead, they logged and tagged every maneuver, relaying data to the NATO Combined Air Operations Center in Udem, Germany. There, real-time feeds from across Europe converged: radar blips, infrared images, transponder codes, even radio chatter. Within that command room, officers compared the unfolding situation against prior Russian behaviors. A similar pattern had been seen before. Over Syria, over the Barents Sea, even near the Black Sea, Russian aircraft appeared, shadowed by Western jets, probing rather than attacking. Testing radar response times, radio discipline, and political thresholds. What made this Baltic encounter different was its timing. It came just weeks after the European Union tightened sanctions on Russian oil shipments and insurance coverage. Moscow's Shadow Fleet had become one of its few remaining lifelines to foreign revenue. Protecting that lifeline, even symbolically, carried political weight. Inside the Italian F-35 cockpits, the pilots maintained radio silence. Their displays were filled with synthetic imagery, icons, coordinates, missile envelopes, all linked with AWACS surveillance aircraft hundreds of kilometers away. The MiG-31s, however, were operating in a much more traditional environment. Fast, powerful, but limited in how they could sense and share information. This asymmetry defines modern air power. It's not about who can fly higher or faster, but who can see more and share it faster than the other side. For every kilometer the MiGs advanced, NATO already knew, from radar plots to infrared reflections off their fuselages, where they were heading. The F-35s didn't need to confront them physically. Their very presence on radar, their quiet shadowing, sent the message. Eventually, the MiGs turned back, reportedly before crossing into NATO airspace. The tanker continued its course but didn't receive cover again after that point. Soon, more tracking systems lit up around it, broadcasting its identity and route across open maritime databases. Whatever cover story it had was gone. The incident may seem minor compared to larger conflicts, no shots fired, no casualties. But to defense analysts, it underscored a quiet transformation in European security. During the Cold War, strength in the Baltic was measured in fighter counts, missile ranges, and response times. Today, strength is measured in connectivity, how fast intelligence can flow between allies, and how well every sensor, satellite, and submarine shares what it sees. For Russia, that change poses a problem. Its planes remain powerful, but power projection without secure data networks is increasingly like shouting into static. For NATO, particularly since Finland and Sweden joined the alliance, the Baltic has become a nearly enclosed environment for cooperative surveillance. Every radar in Lapland, every satellite over Lithuania, every frigate in the Gulf of Finland is part of one synchronized network. When a MiG-31 takes off, someone, somewhere, already knows. Publicly, both sides downplayed the event. Moscow described it as routine training. NATO as routine air policing. But between the lines, both messages signaled something deeper. For Moscow, a show of defiance, proving its aircraft can still approach NATO borders without fear. For NATO, a demonstration that its deterrence no longer depends on matching Russia plane for plane, but on coordination and transparency. In international politics, even silence can be a message. Neither side escalated, neither side acknowledged direct confrontation. And yet, everyone watching understood that a threshold had been tested. 3 MiG-31s enter the skies near Estonia. A Shadow Fleet tanker drifts beneath them through the Baltic mist. Italian F-35s lift off invisible to radar, linking into a network that spans an entire continent. No one fires, no one wins, but everyone sees. In 8 minutes, the world witnesses not a dogfight, but the future of conflict. Real-time surveillance, algorithmic targeting, and geopolitical signaling through restraint. What began as a small encounter becomes a quiet lesson in 21st century power, where dominance is earned not by speed or missiles, but by information. As the Baltic wind howled across gray waves, the Russian jets disappeared east. The tanker kept moving, slower now, more exposed, its cover story gone. Above, the F-35s banked away and returned to base. No missiles launched, no radio chatter, no celebration, just data. Recorded, archived, analyzed. Waiting for the next time the dots on the radar align. Cut to black.